Welcome to Real Battles, Real People. I'm your host, Christian Betancourt. And today I'm honored to meet Jamie. And please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jamie Hughes, social psychologist, author, trauma recovery coach. So I've been doing the coaching for a little over 5 years. Uh, been in the field of psychology for many years, worked in a couple of different nonprofit areas, and been an author semi uh, semi professionally just this year. I had a one of my master's papers published academically, and then started uh, trying to get some information out to people that struggle with different mental illnesses to give them some practical steps to, improve their lives, decrease symptoms, build long-term healing. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
So you're a life coach. I'm a life coach too.
Okay, great, great. Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy it. It's a good way for me to take my personal experiences, things I've been through, and then what I've learned professionally and academically, and help share those with others, help them get over barriers, especially in my case, barriers specifically from trauma that, they may feel stuck with, that's impacting their lives in some capacity, and move past those and build a build a path forward.
No, you have accomplished many things. You're like the Superman of resilience. Like you're out there taking care of people and making sure that they're out of that darkness and and moving on to their goals and whatnot. Wow, you are the man.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. And as I tell people that, you know, might be in that place where it feels dark, feels like, they're just nothing to look forward to. There is, you can't see it when you're in that spot. And I've been there many, many times in life. And even after years of growth and healing, you know, there's still good days and bad days. And well, when you're impacted by trauma or mental illness, it's hard to imagine that there are some aspects of that that are just normal part of human life because your feelings, and your body's response is dialed up to a 9 or a 10, whereas most people it might go up to a 5. And that's part of learning and growth, I think, is just accepting, say, okay, my nervous system, my mind is different. It reacts different. It interprets differently. And so you have to learn, say, okay, well, this is, I got some bad news, or this is not going the way I think. So I feel, you know, like this, but actually, this is kind of normal life. There's, rainy days and sunny days. And how do I, how do I learn to cope with myself in order to, function and move forward? And like anything else in life, it takes practice, it takes time, sometimes a little bit of help, but it's definitely possible.
Can you share with us your your journey, your what inspired you to focus on mental health, well-being, and trauma recovery?
hmm Yeah, sure. So, um, from the time I was little, I went through childhood trauma and abuse. When I was 8 years old, my mother died, and she was a single mom. And after that, I had to go live with my dad, who I had never even met, never even seen. And so I was immediately after losing my mom, I was thrown into a new environment, new household, new town, new school, you name it. And I grew up with him with a lot of emotional and psychological abuse, always being told and made to feel that I was unwanted, that I was worthless, that I would never become anything or anybody, that I was an inconvenience, things like that. And so I began to suffer with depression, partly from, the grief of losing my mom and never being able to process that, and then partly from the emotional and psychological abuse. And so I suffered with depression up until I was 18. I had a suicide attempt, and that was the very first time in my life I was introduced to any type of mental health care, anything to do with therapy or medicine or anything. So even then, coming out of the suicide attempt, I just wasn't ready yet to tackle that, to take that on in terms of healing and growth. And so it was probably about 4 years after that of just aimless life, drinking, uh, just nothing in life. And then finally kind of reached a low point again and decided that I wanted to do something different. I just didn't want to live like that anymore. So I decided, well, uh, I've been suffering with depression for all these years, so I want to start getting help, and I'm going to actually go to school and study psychology and try to learn more about this. One of my professors mentioned early on that most people in psychology go into it to try to figure themselves out, and that was very much my case. So I got engrossed in studying psychology and just loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Not just for myself, but to me, it was just fascinating how things affect our thoughts and emotions, our behaviors, our relationships, all of that. It sort of opened up an understanding of so many things that I had experienced and been through. And it took, many years of growth and healing to start coming out of the fog of depression. And even then, it's kind of like I tell people, it's kind of like looking at the stock market. You know, if you look at a stock, it's not like a straight line that just goes up. It's like this, and it did up and down, up and down, up and down, but in a slow progression if it's a good company. And that's kind of that's actually normal for healing and growth from trauma, mental illness, things like that. And that's kind of what you can expect. And it's hard, especially when you hit those lows, but you go up a little bit, you take a couple of steps forward, and you learn something else. And then you may have some ups and downs, but then you start applying those things you learned. And that's what happened with me. I just a little at a time started, as I was doing the work, doing the introspection, started that healing, started that growth. And that's really what led me into wanting to help others was, okay, if I can do this, there's other people out there I see that I would love to be able to help. I just don't know how. So this will be my way how. I can learn more, I can do more, I can apply it, I can help teach others and help them. And so that kind of has been my progression since the beginning of my healing journey.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have gone through early stages of abuse since they were kids,
Mm,
and they grow up and they hold on to it. They never share it, and
mhm.
it comes back to them. It haunts them, and flashbacks and stuff like that. They never
Yep.
deal with it, and
Yeah.
it's people like you that are able to help those people and assist, and you wear many hats. I mean, you're an author,
Mhm.
life coach. You do everything, and
Mhm.
how do you how do all those roles connect with you?
So they're all connected back to mental health, back to psychology. And um, so for me, it's just in what aspect can I apply what I've learned personally and professionally. So, for instance, when I started the idea of writing the books, each one addresses a different topic. So, there's four published right now. I still have a few more I'm working on. One is for ADHD, one's for anxiety, one's depression, one's PTSD. So, my goal in writing those was to give people a current understanding of the condition, but not just stop there, not just say, okay, here's what it is, and here's all this clinical jargon and, data, et cetera, but take that introduction and that understanding and then say, okay, what can you do about it practically? What's actually going to help you? Everything from uh, how to choose a therapist, what to expect in therapy, you know, how to be an active participant in that so that you keep your autonomy. You're responsible for you and learning how to apply that to your growth and healing. Um, Everything diet, exercise, you know, meditation, any of those areas that I've either done myself, well, which most of them I have and do to this day, or at least have, studied and helped others with. Um, so that was in terms of, how to use my personal experience, what I've been through, and then what I've learned and I've helped others with. That's kind of where all that comes in is just which aspect am I applying it to and what are people's needs?
Of course. Going back to what you were saying about, picking the right therapist, I've got, I've gone to therapy.
Mhm,
I served in the military, went 2 tours. Uh, After my second tour, I went through brain cancer,
mhm.
beat it, and now I'm 12 years cancer free.
Oh,
And
awesome.
I've been going to therapy for 15 years.
Mhm,
And because of my PTSD, my depression, my anxiety.
mhm,
And like you said, it's like Wall Street, up and down,
mhm.
and there's been doctors that say, oh, PTSD can be cured. I was like, I don't know about that because there's guys that, were killed if, in my tour that I will never forget them.
Yeah,
How can you forget, you
yeah.
know? So when it came to therapy, I would meet a therapist and it would be like, I'm not sure about this one. And
Mhm.
then when there's a therapist that actually understands you and listens
Yes.
and shows compassion and empathy, then
Mhm.
you're like, okay, I can be comfortable and stay with this one.
Yes. Yeah. There's um a couple of tips I give. One is um do your research, and know that the first time you talk to a therapist, it's a consultation. So the first time you talk to someone, it's not going to be, deep diving into, past trauma and emotions and things like that. It should be almost like a job interview in a sense. And don't be afraid of that. Don't think it's abnormal. Don't think it's you. This is, there are different types of therapists that use different types of therapy and have different experiences and specializations. So it's okay to line up, do a little bit of homework. Yeah, if it's available to you, line up two or three and, schedule that consultation, which most therapists do a free 15-minute consultation, because they know that's part of the process. And talk to them, say, hey, here's my major concern. What's your experience? What's your style in therapy? Another hint is to know yourself, like me, for instance. So when I first started therapy, I went to uh, like a male therapist at one time, and I came out. I was not having it. I was not having it. To me, it was reminding me too much of my dad, and I couldn't do it. So for a long time, I thought I can't see a male therapist. I have to see a female therapist. Now, over the years, I learned, wait a minute, that's not the issue. For me, it was the issue of whether they were more compassionate or more direct? When I look back, the male therapist I saw that one time was just very direct, very cut and dry. That was the issue that I couldn't handle at the time. I needed that more compassionate approach. I needed someone that was like, yeah, I'm with you. I feel you. Yes, I hear you. You know, I needed that at first because I was so raw and new then. Fast forward, 15, 20 years after going a few times and seeing a few different people, now, like the last time I went to talk to a therapist about an issue, I can't do the compassionate mushy. To me, it's too I know too much now. I need the direct. I'm like, hey, look, I've read your background, I've read your experience. Are you direct or are you compassionate? And the lady was like, well, I'm pretty direct. Good. Don't hold back because I, I'm I'm healed to a point where I have a support system for the compassion. I'm compassionate with myself. I need someone to cut through the BS and say, what did you just say? So know yourself when you're going to seek a therapist and let that be one of your questions. Say, do you lean more on the compassionate, caring side, or do you lean more on the direct, no BS side? And know which one that you're comfortable listening to. You know, look at your friends. Are your best friends, are they direct and no BS? And that's what you hear and understand. That's what helps you. Or are they, hey, let me give you a hug. I'm just going to sit here and hug it out with you and just tell me, cry it out. What do you need in that moment? That will help you also in finding a therapist.
Yeah, a lot of veteran brothers I serve with, they're like best friends to me and brothers and everything. We always keep in touch and they're always direct.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
they don't
yeah.
pop or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. And again, just like me, it might be a matter of timing. If you're just getting into the healing process, maybe going to therapy, the first one or two times, whatever, you might want to go more towards that coddling aspect because you're you're just getting started. So you're going to be pouring out a lot of raw emotions and it's going to hit you. I don't care who you are or what you're talking about. When you first start getting it out, it's all coming out, and it's going to have an emotional impact, which is normal. It should. But as you grow, you might find, okay, yeah, I need the real stuff pointed out. So yeah, it's a lot of it comes to a lot of it comes to learning to be a student of yourself. Start looking at yourself. What have you been through? How has it impacted you? What what's going on in your daily life or your normal routines that are impacted? How are they impacted? Are there any triggers? Are there any times that something said or done or flashbacks, locations, things like that? What's going on that's bringing up, a response? Write those things down. Take note of them, but be a student of yourself. You'll learn what you need more so than any doctor or therapist, which they have their role and is very important. But you're talking to someone for 30 minutes where you know yourself your whole life, whether you're 15, 20, 40, every day. They only know what you tell them in a few minutes. So you become the student of yourself and start picking those pieces out of, okay, here's the problem areas. Now what do I need to do about them?
I agree with you 100%. You have to be your own advocate. You have to
Yes.
take care of yourself.
Yes.
First mental, whatever category you want to start first, but mental, physical,
Hmm.
spiritual, you
Yep.
know, yeah, I agree with that.
Yep. Yep.
What when you navigate through trauma, what's like the first step that that can help someone um, move towards recovery?
Acknowledging it, acknowledging it. We so often want to push it down. and think that if we push it down, then it's not going to affect us, which is the opposite. You know, if you take anything, like let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example, but if you take like a pressure cooker, you know, or some kind of pipe or a gas tank or something, and it's closed off, and you start increasing the pressure inside, sooner or later that sucker's going to blow, you know, and when it blows, it's going, yeah, it's going to mess stuff up. Same way with, with pain, because especially with trauma, it's not just a memory in your mind. It's in your body, your body's nervous system. We're made to react to danger. So that's why everybody's heard the fight, flight, or freeze. That's all, that's just part of our system. But when you have a trauma that's either severe or maybe extremely abnormal, so it's not something, that we're made to deal with in terms of normal stress, or it's prolonged, it's happened over and over again, then your body's system, your nervous system just gets kind of stuck in overdrive to where it's constantly in a state of fight or flight. With PTSD, that's one of the core symptoms is just this hyper vigilance where you can just walk in a restaurant and subconsciously you're you're looking for, okay, where's the exit? Do I need to sit closest to the exit? Or I want to make sure I don't sit with my back to people, things like that. And, and it's not just from, war. We're talking people that are victims of sexual assault, are they're right up there within the PTSD category. And sometimes they don't even realize that's what is causing the problem, is those symptoms. So yeah, the first step is always, always just acknowledging it. And it's painful to do that sometimes, but that's the first step, because you can't fix a problem that you don't identify.
You're on point, always.
Try to be, not always, but try to be.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you're saying, 100% because, these are the things that, you have to take care of yourself, you know, especially with, trauma. And I read in your website that you are a member of the Society for Police and Criminal Psychology.
Yes.
So what
Uh,
exactly do you guys, what do you do for like mental health, uh, for responders?
yeah, so I became a member of that when I was working on my master's degree, and part of my studies involved forensic psychology. And it started with just trauma and led that way because I was doing some research on burnout, secondary traumatic stress, vicarious trauma, things like that, things that people get on the job. And one of the highest burnout rates was correctional officers, so in prisons. And right up there with them was just regular police officers. And then I was like, wait a minute, there's another dot here to connect, and that's suicide. And so the more I, did the research, and the more I talked to people and read, it was like, okay, this is very widely known, but it's not very widely discussed. And that is the number one killer of law enforcement officers is suicide. It's not crime. It's not in the field. Obviously that's a danger too. We hear about people getting shot and killed, but it's like 3 to 1, 3 times the rate from suicide because of the the stress, the undiagnosed and untreated PTSD, um, all of that, and it's not addressed. And even when it's addressed, it gets pushed to the side. Like, oh yeah, 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 we've got, EAP, and we've got, you know, they have insurance, so they can go see a therapist if they need. Mm, yeah, but for a law enforcement officer, if they say, "Oh, I need time to go see this therapist," it's put on their jacket.
Mm.
They are now going to be blackballed and blacklisted, definitely off the beat. Sometimes lose their job if they even admit that there's a problem. And there's absolutely already a problem. It's not if there's a problem, it comes with the job. So my thesis paper ended up being about, mental health issues among law enforcement. And so I started kind of, doing more research and writing in that area and hoping to raise awareness for that issue so that hopefully somebody somewhere will start, you know, actively doing something about it because it's definitely a problem and it's definitely pushed under the table by, you know, those in charge, at least at some level, because it's going to impact their workforce. It's going to impact their quotas. It's going to impact all those things that, you know, they're responsible for. But you can't just have a group of people that are subjected to almost daily trauma and then say, oh, well, they'll be okay. They're not going to be okay. And their families are not going to be okay when they're gone, you know? So that became an important issue to me. And I hope the more work that I can do on that, uh, I can help raise some awareness for that issue.
Have you reached anyone that has been hesitant to like seek mental health?
Yes, yes. I've done some interviews of law enforcement in the US and in the UK, and 9 out of 10 are, nope, absolutely not. Not doing it because we'll lose our jobs, we'll get made fun of by our coworkers, we'll get put on desk duty, etc., etc.
Yeah, I know a couple of guys that I deployed with that became police officers, and that's one of the main things. Like, nope, I don't want to be a part of that.
Yep, yep. So
Um,
it's like I say, it's an issue that is widely studied and known. I mean, the facts are there, the numbers are there, but it's pushed under the table for other reasons. So hopefully we can hopefully we can do some work on that and change that in the near future.
yeah. Is there any type of technique that you've used on your clients to help them find any type of clarity or peace?
Yes, journaling.
Um,
Journaling is something that I sort of accidentally came across. When I was younger, I was a big comic book fan, still am. And but I like my teenage years, I would write stories, and they'd be mostly superhero stories. And I noticed as I got older that I some of the stories I was writing were really my circumstances. Even with the characters in comic books, there were some things that I could identify with, like Peter Parker, Spider-Man. So, his parents were killed. He lived with his aunt and uncle. Then his uncle was killed, so he was left with his aunt. And he always had this sense, this inner feeling of wanting to help people. He felt, it was kind of his duty and responsibility to help others. And that was something I personally connected with. So when I would write my stories, there would be little tidbits, little nods to my life in these fictional stories. So as I started that process of healing and seeking help, I came across the idea of journaling, and it wasn't just like writing in a diary. It wasn't like, today's July the 4th and, I woke up at 6 a.m. and it was cloudy. Not that. Journaling being more like, okay, here's what I've experienced, and here's how I feel about it. Here's where I think what I think about it. Here's the areas I want to work on. And I learned that even fictional writing could be a form of journaling. It could be therapeutic. And that's where I started connecting those dots between my writing as a teenager to how I could write in journaling. And it was a way to express my thoughts and feelings about my childhood trauma and abuse and start to discover ways to move forward, ways to reframe the thinking about myself, my self-image. And I actually became certified in journal therapy, and that's one of the methods that I use when working with clients is, hey, let's get a pen and notepad out and do some writing. And it's cool. It's a great method because one, it's cheap and easy, and two, you can do it whenever you want to. You don't have to set an appointment. You know, if you're just struggling, if you're just having a rough day and all your symptoms are clear and present, you can just get out a notebook and just write that down. Just say, today sucks. I'm having a rough time today. Dang, everything I think I've learned, it's just like I just can't get a grasp on it today. And it's like talking to your best friend. It's like talking to a therapist, but it's you. And so it really helps at the time that you need it. And the more you do it, the more you realize, I actually like that. And it does actually work.
As we close out, I want to say that you're the jack of all trades. Like you are tailored to send a message out to the people. You can do this. You can take care of yourself. This is the script that you have to follow. These are the steps that's going to take you to where you need to be. And I want to thank you for that because not many people like yourself
Mm,
is doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any with our listeners, what's a piece of encouragement or a mindset shift where what would it be?
Um, think of your healing and growth like this. Don't chase butterflies. In other words, don't don't always think of trying to get to some type of external reward. Instead, build a garden, and that garden is inside you. Work on that. And once you build that, the butterflies will come. But even if they don't, you still built a beautiful garden. You build something for you, and that will be inside you and part of you, and something that you can work on and make progress with for the rest of your life. That will be you helping you. And those butterflies will come. They'll come back because that's what they want too, is the garden.
What would first of all, I want to say how can listeners reach out to you?
You can go to my website, which is managingmentalhealth.net, and would appreciate the social media followings. I post stuff all the time, almost daily about, mental health tips and um, motivation, inspiration, practical strategies. So they get a lot out of that. And then my email's there, so a person can reach out to me there if they're interested in coaching, if that's what they need, or if they want to, contact professionally. And then my books are listed there too. If they see one of those that is the issue they're struggling with, or if they're a family member of someone struggling with a mental health issue like PTSD, I tell them it's just as important for them to do some reading and get some understanding of what their loved one's going through, and it'll help them know how they can help better as well.
Yeah, like a caregiver. Uh, well, thank you. I appreciate you taking your time, being on my podcast, and uh, uh, people are going to reach out to you. I know it, 100%. And thank you so much for being on the show.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it a lot. Enjoyed it.
This is Real Battles, Real People. Take care, everybody.